A sharp new turn in Donald Trump's tariff roller coaster ride today. Donald Trump telling the world and the American consumers, brace for a brand new round of tariffs. At the end of his foreign trip, Trump announced that the administration will start sending out letters to trading partners to let them know of new tariff rates. Watch.
We have, at the same time, 150 countries that want to make a deal, but you're not able to see that many countries. So at a certain point over the next 2 to 3 weeks, I think Scott and Howard will be sending letters out, essentially telling people, it would be very fair, but we'll be telling people what they'll be paying to do business in the United States. So essentially be paying to be doing business in the United States. I guess you could say they could appeal it, but for the most part, I think we're going to be very fair. But it's not possible to meet the number of people that want to see us.
Check your mailbox. We're sending you a letter. What? What happened to all the deals that the administration was going to make? What happened when Donald Trump climbed down from his so-called reciprocal tariff rates? Trump officials then tried to save face when that almost collapsed the global economy by claiming that Mr. Art of the Deal himself, the best deal maker ever, and the Trump administration was going to ink hundreds and hundreds of deals. Here's Peter Navarro saying that last month.
So we're going to run 90 deals in 90 days is possible. The boss is going to be the chief negotiator. Nothing's done without him looking very carefully at it. He has such a fine attention to detail.
Such a fine attention to detail that there are no deals. There's no deals. There's a framework for one deal with the UK. By the way, the UK accounts for 3% of our trade with the world. There's a framework for negotiations for a possible deal with China, not 90 deals in 90 days, like not even close, not even by Trumpian math. So today's announcement by Trump actually raises more questions than it answers. They're sending letters? It's unclear what countries are going to get their letters and whether these new tariff rates in the letters are going to replace the reciprocal tariff rates that were put in place by Donald Trump in the Rose Garden on Liberation Day, but then subsequently frozen after Liberation Day. Again, because the global economy started to crater. In other words, businesses and consumers don't know what to expect now. But they do know because of that announcement on camera that there are letters coming, and so we're all bracing for more confusion and more uncertainty on top of the chaos and confusion that has already put consumers in this country in a sour and anxious mood. CNBC reports this, quote, U.S. consumers are becoming increasingly worried that tariffs will lead to higher inflation. That's according to a University of Michigan survey released Friday, quote, tariffs were spontaneously mentioned by nearly 3/4 of consumers, up from almost 60% in April. Uncertainty over trade policy continues to dominate consumers' thinking about the economy. That's according to the survey director. That should come as no surprise because consumers are already paying more for the same things, all because of Donald Trump. CNBC adding this reporting, quote, even with the pauses on import levies against China and other countries, the effective tariff rate for goods entering the U.S. is still significantly higher today than it was before Donald Trump's inauguration in January. Donald Trump continuing to confuse and threaten the American consumers and businesses with more economic mayhem and pain is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Professor of Economics and Public Policy at the University of Michigan, Justin Wolfers is back, and MSNBC columnist, author of the newsletter To the Contrary, Charlie Sykes is here. Justin, just tell me, and I have to say, I am happy that another segment of the world, another segment of American civic society has to watch the things he says because it threatens to drop the bottom out of their existence. And that is, you know, the markets and small and large businesses and the American consumers. It doesn't mean I'm happy about the pain and the suffering that he's causing, but I am glad that there are more people to help me understand what he's saying. What do you understand this announcement about a new round of letters to mean?
Right. So the good news for you personally, Nicole, just for you, is you can start showing reruns. Don't have to turn up to work tomorrow because we've done this once before. Let me remind everyone how we got here. April 2nd was Liberation Day. Trump and his blokes got in a room and wrote down some numbers. They came out and said, here's our numbers. They were utterly incoherent. The penguins on the herd in McDonald Islands were very upset about it, but they weren't the only ones. So was Wall Street. And stocks fell by 12% over the next week as we were looking at a near certain recession in the eye. So time passes, 7 days, stocks crater, businesses call the White House. They say, what the heck are you doing? This is crazy. So Trump comes out and says, just kidding. I'm putting a 90-day pause because in reality, I didn't want tariffs. I wanted bargaining power so I can make deals. I'm going to make 90 in 90 days. In fact, we've had updates. We've had blokes on TV come on out and say, oh, we've made 8 deals, we've made 12 deals, we've made 16 deals, we're going to make 90 in 90 days. And then it turns out they've made 2. Let me read the last line of the UK deal. This document does not constitute a legally binding agreement. The China deal was let's talk again. So the deals aren't going well. So he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get in a room and make up some numbers. Same as last time. There's one important difference, Nicole, and it's fabulously important. He's going to send a letter this time as well.
No deals. There are no deals. I mean, it is Charlie Sykes like Mexico paying for the wall. I mean, Mexico never paid for the wall. There was very little wall ever built. There are no deals. There are, as Justin just said, there are no deals. I mean, that is a factually accurate statement. What there is economic uncertainty for businesses large and small and higher prices for consumers, which is a regressive tax that disproportionately impacts working class and low-income Americans.
Yes, well, I'm sure, Donald Trump, who is a well-known Bible salesman, will recognize the aphorism from Proverbs that as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. Donald Trump keeps coming back to the same answer, to the same question that he failed on the test the last time. And so we're right back where we started from again. And here's just an indication that Donald Trump simply does not have a full grasp of how this is playing out globally. And the impact on consumers. So you're absolutely right. I mean, there's 2 key points. Number one, I mean, we're back to the uncertainty. The economy has been frozen in many ways. Consumers are getting increasingly nervous. And they're about to discover how deeply regressive these tariffs are, because the tariffs tax goods. They don't tax services. They tax the things that working class people pay for, not the kinds of things that many of Donald Trump's buddies pay for. And so we're going to be seeing the downstream effects of this very, very, very soon. And I think that there was probably some wishful thinking on the part of the business community in the markets that after he blinked on the China deal, that Donald Trump had learned his lesson. Well, this is the one fixed idea that Donald Trump has had in his head for 20 or 30 years, and he's going to keep coming back to it again and again and again. And despite all the wishful thinking of the markets, here we are. We're going to be replaying this again.
Let me read again. I'd like to sort of stay focused on what this means for American consumers who make up traditionally the health and the resilience of our economy. This is new reporting in Bloomberg. Quote, Trump to keep 30% China tariffs in place until late in 25. Quote, U.S. levies on Chinese products imposed this year will likely hold at 30% through late 2025, according to a Bloomberg survey that had 22 respondents from a mix of Asian, European, and U.S. fund managers, banks, and research firms. While much lower than before the thaw this week, the current rate is high enough to wipe out 70% of Chinese shipments to the world's largest economy in the medium term. That's a projection from Bloomberg Economics. I also have this reporting that I think, Justin, I'm going to need your help explaining from CNBC, that the stacking of tariffs pushes the true cost for retail goods much higher than 30%. Prices that we pay on the sticker or on the tag of a sweater isn't just going to be the price before while Joe Biden was president, plus 30%, the Trump tariff tax. It could go up by 46%. A cotton sweater, that's 16% most favored nation, plus the fentanyl and reciprocal tariffs. Women's bathing suits from China face a tariff of 54.9%, 24.9% most favored nation, plus the fentanyl and reciprocal tariffs. A baby's dress that's made in China faces a tariff of 41.5%, 11.5% most favored nation, plus the fentanyl and reciprocal tariffs. There have been tariff announcement after tariff announcement after tariff announcement. Trump again today on camera talking about a letter that will be on top of the other tariffs he's already announced. Just talk about how that layers into the price tag on an item at Walmart or another retailer.
Right. So all of those numbers you read were just very confusing. So let me deconfuse them. I want you to remember all the way back in time to the start of January of this year. Back then, we did have tariffs on China. There were tariffs that the first Trump administration had put on. There were tariffs that the Biden administration had continued or put on, and there's even tariffs from earlier. Those tariffs, on average, are probably about 8%. But they're higher for some things, like it sounded like girls' dresses, and they're lower for other things. So those tariffs are there. Then Trump comes along and says, I know how to prevent fentanyl getting into the US. I'll put a 20% tariff on China. That is a tax on Americans importing goods from China. So now all of those numbers go up by 20. And then he added his Liberation Day tariff of another 10. Well, he actually added a lot more and then brought it all back down. Let me tell you what it does mean on average. It means on average the tariff rate is the Trump 30% plus the 8% he inherited from history, so 38%. And all of those are extra costs being charged to Americans and will either go through to higher price tags in the store or lower profit margins for the store that's selling it to you. But from past experience, most of it's going to be higher price tags for Americans.